What's up, everybody? Welcome to Arrow on Target. We're your hosts, Chris
and John. You can find us on Twitter at JohnWright777
and ChrisWright250. I'm going to close that door back there.
Yeah, it's weirding me out. I feel like somebody's going to sneak in, like Roy. Roy's going to sneak in and like, you know, I don't know, do some weird things to us.
Yeah, so that was crazy.
Yeah, this episode was nuts, man.
I feel like we should just be angry this entire time we do this. Oh man, did you see the episode tonight? I'm so roided out.
I'm so amped. Yeah, dude, it's like, they mentioned it. They kind of like nodded to everybody calling it the roid rage or whatever.
Wait, when did they do that?
They did, whenever said he was like on something or he had like steroids on him.
Steroids, yeah. They also referenced him being an Abercrombie model.
Yeah, she does that all the time though. That's what Sin does. Like
I don't remember
ever
that.
Since the first episode, like they've interacted. She
always
calls him Abercrombie.
That's cool.
Yeah, and because like you pointed out that is because he was a Abercrombie model, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's legit.
It's legit.
He's legitimately
too legit to quit.
Abercrombie. So like, what's the deal with him? It's like we're literally like, here. Let me adjust that. I feel like the frame is off here.
Technical problems.
We were caught ill-prepared and unawares.
Yes. Kind of like the bad guys that Roy...
Yeah.
They weren't even bad guys.
They weren't even bad guys. They were just guys.
Unsuspecting civilians and policemen.
Yeah, and policemen.
Who you should
murdered.
never kill.
He murdered one of these police guys with an arrow through the chest.
Yeah, dude. That was wild.
Man. It's like that has you almost... That has you like halfway agreeing with Sarah.
On all the standouts that I've watched on live TV, on Cops and Alaska State Troopers.
Yeah.
And, you know, other policeman things.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone go, "Hey, you, stop!" and then literally get inches from them.
Well, they were like
out making them
they said
do
drop
with their hands,
drop the arrow. Yeah, that's true.
Or like get on the ground face down.
Dude, that's true. They were probably just rookies. You know, they were probably just like these are rookie cops in Starling City. You know.
I want to know their backstory. Can we have a spin-off show about the rookie cops in Starling City?
Lots of flashbacks.
No, like just a buddy cop show. Like they're just they run around cleaning up Oliver's messes, and finally it just escalates until they get killed by Roy.
Just
yep.
That's the like the series finale.
Yes.
So it's like over.
Dead.
Gosh. Okay, so speaking of endings,
yeah.
This ending of this episode was ridiculous.
All right. So, man, what is going on right now?
Dude, I was not prepared for this. I had to get
obviously
my phone
amateur
with my
hour
notes.
here.
Yeah, I just wasn't prepared.
Well,
I thought we already discussed ill-prepared, unawares,
yes,
stunned.
things like that.
Leave that in the past.
Okay, so I don't even know why I was. Oh, the end, man. Okay, so let's just process this for a minute. All right.
Yeah.
Number one, I think this was up there with me, you know, in terms of good television.
Yeah.
Up there with the end of this season of The Walking Dead.
Yep.
Up there with True Detective. Now, I'm not saying it was on the same level,
right?
But it was up there.
But it's like
if I'm gonna name my top 3 television moments.
Well, especially like intensity level, and especially for this type of show, like the type of audience that this show like appeals to and everything. Yeah. You know, the majority of the audience and stuff. It's like this episode was framed perfectly. Like from start to finish, there wasn't a problem I think I had with this episode.
No.
Like this was up there with like mid-season. It's better than mid-season finale, better than the whole thing with the Flash, everything.
This is like the pinnacle of this television show right now.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they can maintain it. But man, I didn't see any of that coming.
No.
Like even throughout the rest of the whole episode, like it's basically been telling the story of Roy.
Yeah.
And then there's this cool stuff that I was liking with Moira and her relationship with her children.
Yeah, and how Oliver is just a terrible like you always forget because like we're even on the island, like we're disconnected from jerk Oliver.
Yeah.
Like, but he's just a total douchebag.
Right.
Before the island.
And she's cleaning up his messes. And but in that you still see like the love that she has for him. And I think that this episode more than any illustrated like how much she actually loves her children.
Yes.
And
but this is the weird thing about it to me is it had that element of duality that we've always seen from Moira, where while you undoubtedly like you never question whether or not she loves them in this episode and how much and how deep that flows, but even in everything that happened, and as much as she loved them, her lies and her deceit of them just go that deep. So it's like, even though her character, like, and this is obviously this whole, you shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen the episode, but she even in her death, there's going to be things that are popping up in Oliver and in Thea's lives where it's like, Mom just lied to us, just deceived us. But this is the thing.
I think, like, in this episode, we saw her reach a turning point, and she was about to tell them, hey, Malcolm Merlin's alive.
Open the floodgates,
and who knows? And who knows what else? Like, what felt like was coming, and this is why it worked so well. Like, before the car gets hit, is it felt like she was about to reveal to them, like, Malcolm Merlin's still alive. Any of her secrets she had going on,
and Oliver was probably going to end up revealing Arrow. That sort of thing. Exactly.
Like, I think, like, we were going to go down that road, and Oliver was going to tell Thea that he's the Arrow, and I think that Moira was going to start going down the road of telling them things that she's been keeping from them. And it was cool to see that in her. And it was also really cool to see the fact that she has known that Oliver, like, the moment there were two really touching, like, interpersonal moments with Oliver this episode. One of them was with Felicity. Which is weird because I don't really like Felicity as that
character.
Yeah,
but she had two moments in there. Like, there was the one where there was the one very human moment that you're talking about, where, like, where basically Sarah had gone off into the deep end, and Oliver couldn't do anything. He was weakened to the point of, like, he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And she had this moment with him there. But then also whenever, like, he asked for the drug to inject himself, like, that was a good moment with her as well.
Yeah, that was a little more, like, off the cuff. But, like, I was talking about the former one where like they're basically, like, he's basically saying, hey, she's, and I like that, him identifying, hey, she's who I was on the island. We can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But, like, so there's that moment, but then there was the moment with he and Moira, I guess, in the stock room of the back room of the bar.
Before her speech.
Right before her speech. And like, it was cool to see them interact, and she says, hey, I know.
Yeah.
And
he, like, stops because he says he says,
he thought she was saying, I know what you're saying.
Yes, I know that I should take on the city, but then it really meant I know, as in I know everything.
You're the Arrow, and just the fact that she, like, so
makes perfect sense.
We've always been kind of like skeptical of Moira and her motives. And so we haven't really figured out, like, at times it even felt like she was against Oliver.
Yeah.
And she was against Arrow.
Yeah.
But apparently not. Not to the point that she's going to do something about it.
She said she found out, like, during the undertaking. And so that was the last episode of the first season. And so, like, this entire season, like, no matter what has happened, the ins, the outs, the ups, the downs, Moira has known.
Right.
And so, like, that's really weird. It's like, it's weird to look back at that and to go look at it through a different lens, where it's like her running for mayor could have very well possibly been her waking up to the fact that, hey, there's something wrong with the city, and I need to help my son, or I need to help him in some way that he can't help the city.
There's that, and then I can also remember several times where she would make weird references to, like, why is he hurt, or what's he been doing, and all that kind of stuff,
and just writes it off as, like, oh yeah, that's another wreck, or another, like,
he writes it off. But I think that was actually throughout the season her trying to give him chances to tell her about what's going on, because they were never in front of people in these instances.
Right.
It was usually something that was one-on-one, him and her.
Or it's always like, hey, what's going on? But he didn't trust her enough to, like, tell her, because, like, obviously she's, and she's
I think
not
Moira, as being Moira, understands that. She understood that he didn't trust her.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's very similar to, like, this flashback where she came up to him whenever pre-Island Oliver, and was like, hey, what's going on? I can see you're having a bad day. But she was eavesdropping on him then, so obviously why wouldn't she, like, know more than he thinks she knows now?
Right.
And so, I mean, it was very much those same scenarios where she would approach him and be like, man, what's going on? You seem really tired, or, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's obvious that she knows.
But I loved all that. Man, like, just the entire sequence from the point they get hit. Like, I almost thought the show was over at that point and it was just going to be continued next week.
Right.
But then they wake up and
which would have been the easy move. That would have been the easy move.
It would have been shocking, and honestly, like, At first, I was like, man, that should be the end.
Yeah, and if they keep going, it's like, what, it's like just going to degrade or water down what happened.
Not at all. Because this is the first major character death that we've had since Tommy.
Since Tommy, yeah.
Because Malcolm is obviously not dead. So,
and this one was brutal.
And the thing is,
this
is not even the final episode, man. We've got 3 more.
Yeah, dude. And also, like, I just love, like, it's giving me, like, chills right now. Just the parallels between this and early in the season with Shadow and all of, like, even just the framing and stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
And, like my comment on Slade is, like, Slade is the stuff that nightmares are made of.
Yeah,
just,
dude.
like, his voice, whenever he's going, choose! Like, it's like, you can't even handle that.
Like, whenever Oliver yells at him and says, I am going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, kill him.
You literally are just like, because he is like, he's been reduced this entire, like, for the last, like, however many episodes, he's just being, like, nicked at. Now his leg is broken. His team is broken up. And all of this stuff is going wrong. And now it's like, he's got to choose. And so, oh gosh, you just, like, have so much loathing built up for Slade.
The crazy thing is, like, Oliver, this entire time, like, he can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Like, and even his team, like, Slade puts him to shame every single time. And
every time.
I don't know, like, it's just crazy. And
Slade is such the perfect, like, nemesis. More so than Malcolm, more so than any other bad guy that we've faced. As creepy as they've all been and as challenging as they've all had their own, like, challenges and quirks and stuff, Slade is literally just this. He's all of that. He is creepy. He is twisted. He is a tank, and it's like he is everything.
Number one, he's, like, really strong. You know, but, like, 2, it's personal for him.
Right.
Like. And while Oliver has many different things he focuses on, Slade has one thing, and that is destroying Oliver.
Yes.
And whenever you only have one thing to focus on, you get really good at that one thing.
That's a good point. Well, and also, you think about Blood, and before we even revealed that Slade was behind any of this, it's like he's been behind the scenes working through all of this. Mm-hmm. We did notice that this week, speaking of, like, Slade and his, like, minions, I guess, that Rochef has been missing for the week. Lots of time passed, and I did like the vibe that had. Like, rather than, like, the last few episodes, it felt pretty back-to-back, like, where they happened maybe in consecutive days or something. But this one, we gave it a little bit of time, gave it some time to, like, heal wounds. It was like this calm before the storm for the characters, almost. Yeah. Where even, like, Oliver and Sarah were, like, in the hotel, and they were, like, living it up for a while.
Yeah, and this is basically the only part of the show this episode that I didn't like, was where we left their relationship. Because we see it so many times. Sarah doesn't like herself and who she is enough, so she puts that on Oliver and says, I'm not a good enough person for you. It's a form of self-pity.
Well, but it's exactly the same thing. I mean, it's the exact same thing that Oliver thought whenever he very first, like, started the show and came back to the island.
And I understand that, and they did make that parallel where like we mentioned, he said, like, she's exactly the way I was whenever I came back from the island.
Yeah.
But just that whole argument and the fact that she's going to leave. She knows Slade's still out there.
Yeah.
She knows the storm is coming.
Yeah.
She knows that all this is gonna happen, and she's still, like, where has she gone? I
mean, Slade mentions. He said she told me, and so the only person that could tell him, like, what, like, would be Sarah, right? Like, in that situation.
No, he was talking about Shadow. Like, in that. No. Because what he was referencing was, she said, he was telling Oliver, you made the choice to kill Shadow.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I didn't. That's not true. And he said, she told me. Just like, and this is what I found interesting about that.
That it was like, he was going insane, and so he was saying,
Shadow told me. Up until now, like, we saw that he saw Shadow, but we didn't know what kind of stuff she was really telling him.
Right.
And we saw that. We still haven't really seen it, but we saw it with
Roy, right?
I love how they did that.
Man, that was nice. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't even put that together. That just kind of blew my mind whenever you just broke that down. Seriously, like, because with Roy, Theo was telling him, hey, I need to die. Which was
creepy,
right?
Dude.
Oh, dude, that was nuts. And so, like, with Shadow would be telling Slade that Oliver needs to die.
Yep.
Oliver, so like just the obsession is there in both of them. It's brought on by the Mirakuru. I mean, it's like that's nuts, dude.
It's brought on by the Mirakuru and just this paranoia it gives you because those are obviously things that their own minds are telling them. Like, you know, like that's what Slade believes, and so that's what Shadow tells him.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think in his heart of hearts, Roy probably did want Thea to come after him whenever he rejected her. He was just listening to Oliver.
Right.
But he wanted Thea to be the opposite side of that.
But it was a cry for help, you know. He was, whenever he was doing these things, it was a cry for help, and it was him asking her to come and rescue me, essentially. Yeah. But man, speaking of Thea, man, props to her for not being suicidal yet. Like, I mean, it's like she has been through so much, you know, from finding out her parents, or the kidnapping, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, her brother disappears here and there, like, willy-nilly, you know, and then it's like the kidnapping, with Slade, who, like, you had in your house, and, like, all this stuff, and whatever.
Right.
And then, you know, finding out that your parents are, like, mass murderers.
Right.
You know, and then now... Like, I don't even know where we see her next episode. Like, Oliver at least was on the island, and he had this stuff, like, incrementally happen to him, and so it, like, hardened his skin, and it's like a callus.
Dude,
but it's like, with her, you just dumped everything of the world on her in the last, you know, month.
We are almost to the point where he has to tell her what's going on.
I wonder if we're going to see that next episode.
He can't keep it a secret anymore, and I like that. Like, something that, you know, outsiders and people, like, new to superhero stories always point at is how can they not know that they're who they are? And that's fine. That's a good argument. I accept that as a valid argument.
Right.
A lot of times our answer is just like, well, it's a comic book show or it's a comic book movie, and I don't necessarily think that answer is okay all the time.
Right.
And I like how this show has said, you know, like Detective Lance, he didn't want to know.
He still doesn't want to know.
His suspicions, but he never wanted to know.
Right.
Sarah figured it out pretty quickly. Yeah. You know, and then Moira obviously knew.
She knows.
So like really,
and Laurel's been drunk all season, so there's no way.
But she knows.
Yeah, until like she was told, there's no way I could like see her putting that together. Like just because she's drunk.
We're entering a world in which everyone close to Oliver knows, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That makes more sense than continuing with this facade that no one knows who he is. Now Thea's the only one.
And it also ups the stakes for Oliver. In that it makes things more dangerous for him. It makes villains more dangerous for him.
It makes villains not necessarily, because only if the villains know who he is.
But if more people know, I mean, the tendency would be that that even the people that he loves or the people that do know could potentially hurt him.
That's true.
In ways, you know, or somebody that they know could be, you know, they could let it slip or anything. Like literally, it just puts everybody at risk.
Yeah, obviously, like,
just that risk factor just
letting
climbs.
some secret out into more and more people. Like there is a point at which the centrifugal force spirals out of control, and everyone in the city knows.
Gosh.
You know, but then you just go the route of Tony Stark and Iron Man just saying, I am Iron Man.
Yeah, hey, that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
I've got enough money, I'm fine, you know.
Yeah. Do you wanna mess with me? I don't think so.
Not at all. Yeah. Okay, so then we also saw like the awesome, you know, snake venom arrows. I loved that aspect of this episode. We brought that back. We brought that full circle where it's like, hey, I was literally thinking, well, what other than a bullet to the face could stop Roy? A bullet to the knee didn't really stop him. He was about to, you know, if Sarah hadn't killed him right then, he was about to take her out. And so Oliver, you know, just pulls out the snake venom that we had from like way back earlier this season. So
like this was a very well written episode, and this is why this is something that intrigues me is the way that they did this. Like, because literally Roy is in the same spot now as he was at the beginning of the episode. He's knocked out in the basement of, you know, the club in the arrow lair.
Right.
And at first, whenever they got him back on the table, he's laying there again, and I had that thought, and I'm like, this is dumb. Not really, because what they used it for was, like, you just didn't know what they were about to use it for. They used it to explain things about the ending scene and about Slade and the way Mirakuru works.
Yes.
And used it as a distraction to distract not only us, but Oliver
There's a MacGuffin.
From what Slade was doing. Sure. I don't even know what a MacGuffin is. But it was one.
But that's exactly what it was. No, it's
because it distracted me.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot all about freaking Slade.
Oh gosh, dude, me too.
And he comes out of nowhere.
Well, even like, okay, so I mean, there was so much stuff that happened with Roy where it just upped the game, and then it's like once you solve that, what else is there? And again, I was thinking the same thing about Moira whenever we had the whole attention drawn to her, like, you know, not being mayor,
and then all of a sudden she is again,
and then all of a sudden, like, we're like, I was like, man, well, we're exactly the same spot that we just were. I was like, I love the emotional development. I love the fact that it felt more like a film, like a feature film would, because there would be that moment where it's like, hey, I want this, and then something deters you from that, and then at the end you would go, hey, I want this again. You know, I really want it more than the antagonistic forces. But it's like, that just feels weird in television a lot of times. And I was wondering if that would happen. But then, again, at the end of this episode, it just shattered my reality.
Yeah, like, it's no longer an issue whether or not she's going to run anymore. No. She can't.
Listen, blood won.
Yep.
Like, we've decided.
Blood just won.
Blood won the bear.
And maybe that's what Slade's plan was all along. And I want to say, he kind of almost just told Blood whenever he Moira joined the race, and he said, I'm going to lose now, and he just basically said, suck it up. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he had this plan in place at some point.
And also, Moira, I feel like she had some knowledge of what, like, I think she made the connection between Slade and Blood. I think she finally did there at the end. Because she said, there's only one way that this night can end. And I think that no matter what Oliver really chose, I think he was probably going to kill Moira. Or at least put him in a position where he wouldn't choose
because I took it as there's only one way that this night's going to end, in that someone was going to die, and she wanted it to be her. But it's, dude, I now that you say that, I think I'm going towards that direction.
Yeah, there's just a recognition.
She knew I'm the one that has to die.
Yes. That's the way I took it, was that it's got to be me. That in your global plan, tonight has to be me.
I almost thought, man, that he was not going to kill anyone whenever he said, you were
He puts his gun away.
Yeah.
And then he turns around.
And then he kills her with his sword.
So brutal, dude.
Man. And that was totally brutal. Like a Walking Dead kind of shot. Like before The Walking Dead, we wouldn't see that shot.
Yeah. Which is really nice that it has this awareness of pop culture and of other shows that they would be okay doing that.
Right.
Whereas you wouldn't see something like that, I don't think, on some like a network show yet.
Right.
Where I don't think that they've necessarily had that self-aware.
But this is a network show.
I mean, like the big networks, right? Like ABC or CBS or NBC. You wouldn't really see something like that yet on those. Just because, again, I don't think they have that awareness.
Emotionally taxing episode that, by the end you're just like, man, you just have to sit there and process the information.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely felt like, it was just the most powerful thing. So, the other question that I wanted to ask, so does Oliver have a kid running around in Central City?
Yes, and I was trying to think like
like a 6-year-old kid or something, 7-year-old kid.
It wouldn't necessarily okay. So let's think about this again. We thought we did this. The
timeline, we should have just a timeline. We should get like a
2 years after he's gotten back, and he was on the island for 5, so 7. And even if if it was like the year before,
which it was either the year before or a little bit before that, because he was dating Laurel. And he dated her like right before the island, and then he dated her for like a while there. So like they've been dating for like 2 years or something.
So he has like a 7, 8, or 9-year-old child.
Yep.
Running around Central City.
So are we gonna see that maybe with a connection?
I don't know.
This season, or is that a connection maybe with the Flash?
Possibly, and that's something that like I didn't expect necessarily. Like I was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't really either. But I mean, I don't know. It's
like without her, because you do have that aspect of it, and like the bad things that she's done, the deals that she's made, and the things that she's covered up will hopefully come to light. But then there's things that once they come to light, you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, so that Oliver's going to have to... Well, think about Malcolm. Like, this is the most, like, the one that was on the tip of her tongue right before everything happened.
Yeah.
Malcolm's going to come back, and it's going to surprise both Thea and Oliver, because she didn't tell them.
Right.
And so that's going to be a big surprise, and it's for both of them.
I think that's probably an arc in season 3.
Yes, I agree. Or maybe at the tail end of this season, where potentially he shows up to only Thea. I think that could happen. where he just comes to see his daughter.
Yeah.
And visit, and with Moira out of the way, he may have more reason to be able to come back. Because didn't she say if you come back here or if you ever bother my family again, we're gonna sick Ra's al Ghul again on you.
Right.
So.
And yes, so like he definitely has no deterrent for coming back and messing with Oliver and Thea, and
right.
Like I think like he did seem to want this connection with Thea.
Yeah.
Whenever we last left him, and so we'll have that aspect of it. I also think that moving forward, it will be harder for Oliver and Thea in the real life because, and we've alluded to it several times, even this episode, their mother covers up things and takes care of problems for them.
Well, even him being Arrow, I mean, there could have been countless times that she helped cover that up.
Sure, she covered it up with Thea.
Yeah.
We've just never seen it happen. And the thing is, they've never seen it happen before either. And even if they had, they didn't recognize it as her helping them.
That's true.
And so, just like they don't see this happening, we as a viewer don't see this happening, but I'm sure it was happening every single day.
Yeah.
She was covering up things about him.
Yeah.
She has money. She has power. People are going to trust her, listen to her.
And respect her opinion, too, and respect her as a person, where it's like if she's keeping the dogs at bay from Oliver and even Arrow, then, those dogs are now unleashed.
Especially if she was involved in the underworld as much as we think she was.
Which she definitely was with Malcolm and stuff, for sure. Okay, so, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
The other thing I want to talk about was, where Sarah has gone now.
You think Ra's al Ghul?
Well, so, this is what I hope. I hope, she just doesn't show up again next episode. And it's oh, well, I was brooding in some cabin somewhere. Because that would cheapen the fact that she left, number one. It would also cheapen the fact that no one was there to protect Oliver, Thea, and Moira whenever Slade came and got them.
Well, where was Diggle in that moment? Was he still knocked out on the... Well, no. Was he still...
He's probably in the hospital. He got hit by a freaking, metal bar. We didn't see him in the Arrow Cave. Yeah. All we saw was Felicity and Sarah.
Yeah.
And Felicity's not any help in that kind of situation.
Right.
And
she's still locked down there with Roy. It's that doesn't seem like a comfortable position for her to be in.
Sarah's the only one left that could have helped, and she was gone. I think that will weigh on her conscience.
Which makes her even more guilty.
Right. That's true. But the other thing is, she has to have gone somewhere. So where did she go? Did she go to Ra's? She said something. What did she say? She said something about...
I'm going to see an old friend.
Yeah, so that's either Ra's al Ghul. She referenced him earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's... was it Talia? No, it wasn't Talia. Who was the daughter? What's the daughter's
Nissa.
name? Nissa al Ghul.
Yeah.
It's either that or Nissa al Ghul.
So it's either one of the Al Ghuls, or I was thinking it could be one of the guys from the island that we ran into, one of the Russians, or one of those guys that are on the island, or it could be even what's his name? We don't know what happened to Doc. Well, he's dead, isn't he?
Ivo.
Ivo, yeah, they killed Ivo.
Yeah, Ivo's dead.
So it can't be Ivo.
And
I was just thinking an island connection.
Without knowing who was on the island, there's no. And then what would be the point? Her point was, I'm always going to be a killer.
Right.
I'm not this person that Oliver wants me to be. I'm not this good of a person.
That's true.
At that point in time, it would make sense for her to run back to who made her a killer.
Right.
And that's...
Maybe try to deal with stuff there.
Right. The other option is she goes to Slade.
Yeah.
But I don't know what purpose that would have served.
It wouldn't have served any purpose.
And she wouldn't have been that dumb, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, she wouldn't be... she's been wanting to kill Slade for so long.
Yeah.
She wouldn't go to his side for sure.
Right. Right.
I think that pretty much deals with everything.
Yeah. So moving forward, it looks like from the previews, Blood's Army's going to be released. He's going to be elected mayor.
Yeah. He gets mayor by default.
It almost seemed like in the preview they hinted at Oliver telling someone he was the Arrow.
Yeah.
Or at least having the conversation saying I'm the Arrow. I've got
I
hope it's Thea.
You hope it's Thea. I think I hope it's Thea too. Man, I feel like because Oliver his leg is broken.
Yeah.
Unless there's another gap of time here between this episode and the next episode, which I don't know if there will be. They could make it happen. They could make that natural, but I doubt it.
It looks like, because they showed a funeral, so it's at least a couple days.
Yeah.
It's enough time to get a
funeral together. Yeah, for sure. So if there's a little bit of time, his knee won't heal for a long time. mean, that's not going to happen unless they get like some sort of a mechanical brace, which might help and which might solve everything there.
Yeah.
But he is basically really hurt right now.
Right.
So, like, where we see next episode and where we see, like, I could see him saying, I'm the Arrow, but I can't do anything because I'm hurt.
Right.
You know, there's nothing the Arrow can do. You know? So that discussion might happen. He'll try. I guarantee he'll try, but I don't know how successful he'll be at it.
So, like, you know, the big questions in my mind are: does Roy wake up at some point here? Does he help? You know, defeat? How do they defeat Slade? You know, like, does he? I mean, because they have to kill him. And
do we defeat Slade?
And they need to do that. That has to happen. Like, we have to defeat Slade.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this, you know, entire build-up.
This whole season has been for naught.
Right. It'll be like, you know, I don't know if you saw the. I don't know what it was. I can't remember the name of it. There's this detective show on AMC that just like didn't end after the first season. It was terrible.
That's really bad.
It was the worst. Ended up like ending like 3 episodes into the second season.
That's really strange.
It was dumb. But like that can't happen here. They have to deal
Right.
with Slade and it's done. You know, does Roy help? Does Sarah come back? Does she have help? Or like maybe she goes and gets help. Maybe Nyssa shows back up. Does the Suicide Squad show back up? Like,
does Huntress show up?
Does Huntress show up? Like, what?
Maybe we're dealing with...
It's going to happen because
Yeah.
it looks like there's an all-out war in Starling City.
Yeah.
There's like hundreds of Deathstrokes running around
Yeah.
with the Mirakuru in them.
Yeah, dude.
Like the cops.
Like if we had this much trouble with one dude in a hoodie with the Mirakuru, think about armored guys coming to attack people.
Send in the army, man. Like bad stuff's about to happen.
Yeah.
And worse than I think in the first season where it's just like, oh, it's an earthquake.
Oh, it's just a bomb, you know?
Right. This is an like all-out assault on the city.
Yeah.
By the mayor.
Yeah.
The new mayor.
By the brand new mayor. You just elected me. By the way, these guys are going to be hanging out around here, this army. Don't worry about them. They're in addition to the police force. In fact, the police force, we're just going to, if they get in our way, we're going to kill them. I mean, it's like, what in the world? And it's
Does
like,
Batman swoop in?
Man, that would be amazing. Like,
that would be amazing.
All of a sudden, hi, I'm Bruce Wayne. Here to save your save your city. So, like, I don't even know, man. This is just nuts right now. Like, this is building up to be something that is, beyond the scope of what I thought we would be at. So.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
So do you have quotes from this week?
Yes, I do.
Wait. Hoods up or hoods down?
Hoods up for sure.
Hoods up.
Like, for sure.
Yes.
Maybe like double or triple hoods
5
up.
hoods up.
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 hoods up.
I'll raise you a hood up and also raise a...
You raise hoods up. I don't know.
I like that. We need to make a parody of that song and play it on occasions such as this.
Groban steps in, That's
Yes.
the last episode or something like that,
Yes.
Josh Groban. Okay, so we've got you can either be a mother or a candidate, not both, not right now. And so like that to me, that you knew what was going to happen at that moment.
I didn't though. I thought maybe she was about to just forget her whole family.
I mean, for as much as she has invested in her family and for as much as she has like lied to them in order to protect them, it was like I knew that she was going to do something drastic.
Yeah.
All right, and then we've got Oliver. I know. There's nothing left to say except I couldn't be more proud. Was the next kind of sequence of lines that she said to him.
Right after that? Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know,
yes,
Oliver.
yes.
I know.
We talked about that part.
And then he stops and then she goes, Oliver, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of like hung in the air for a minute there. I just wanted to pause dramatically.
Yes.
All right, and then we've got the Canary saying he would be dead right now if you hadn't stopped me. I would have killed him. I wanted to kill Roy. I spent 4 years in the darkness. I looked into the eyes of the devil and let him have my soul. I just care about you too much to be with you. I love the I spent 4 years in the darkness. I looked into the eyes of the devil and gave him my soul.
Yeah, I like that
That
part.
moment is just like, oh,
I like that part. And then the next line just makes it feel so melodramatic.
Yeah, it kind of does, And I think that was it. That was pretty much, there was lots of stuff there at the end, but it was like my mouth was agape, and so there was less like noting what anybody was saying at that moment, rather than just being shocked.
Right.
So, all right.
Well, that's it for this week. You can find us online at stayontargetpodcast.com. We have a weekly podcast Arrow on Target podcast that goes up every single week. You can find it on iTunes. It's also right here on YouTube. You can find our normal podcast, Stay on Target.
Yep.
It goes up weekly on Friday mornings.
You can find all of this at stayontargetpodcast.com.
Yep.
Once again, you can follow us on Twitter. Mine is JohnWright777.
ChrisWright250 and Stay on Target at Stay on Target Pod.
Yep. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time on
Arrow on Target.